overview of that. Of course, if all you know is the blood sugar, a lot of things are looking like blood sugar problems to you. Yeah? That sort of would be my short answer. And usually we try to go, we go deeper than that. So woven into the blood sugar issue is a whole issue with the food allergies. If you really carefully eliminate the primary food allergens, people's blood sugar dramatically stabilizes. The issue that the insulin receptors are not sensitive anymore to insulin has to do with the issue of biotoxins and environmental toxins and heavy metals. Those are the things that block the receptors from responding to insulin. That's why the insulin level is going up. So we have an approach, when you address the blood sugar issue by, having 6 meals a day and watching carefully your diet, that's one way of treating it, but it's an allopathic approach. It's fixing the symptom, and by doing the heavy metal detox, by going the long way with that and eliminating the allergenic foods and doing the necessary psychological work with the food allergies, you stabilize the blood sugar completely, and the cravings, or the natural cravings of the patient become natural again. Also the issue of the intestinal parasites weaves in there. So we've just gone a different way with that, which I feel is the right way, because first of all, it's not symptomatic, it's noticing the symptom. But when I hear somebody being, having hypoglycemic attacks, when somebody comes to me and says, listen, I'm always hypoglycemic, I get moody or so, what I see in the patient is worms, giardia, amoebas, I see amalgam fillings, root canals, I see Lyme disease. That's sort of what lights up in me, not 6 meals a day. And however, once I've started a patient on treatment, of course we talk about diet, and I use David's diet therapy software, give the patient a handout, and like I said yesterday, my favorite approach in diet is to slowly move away from the heavy meat eating and have a couple of meals where whey protein or other sources of protein are utilized, like beans. And so I just, it's just a little tweak on the issue. We have a pharmacy in Colorado that makes us a test kit for all the hormones, including insulin. And Adriana, I haven't seen the things from Sharon here, from Sharon 1.
It's in a small white box that's on top. The right hand.
Yeah, okay. So this is a fantastic way of doing the hormones and finding out about the insulin sensitivity. What I did with these homeopathics, let me just kind of quickly introduce you to this. For example, you have a DHEA in here. Each hormone is in there twice, as a low potency accord and a high potency accord. And I used some old mathematical principle to design these. In homeopathy, a potency accord is if you have a remedy that has more than one dilution in it, has several different dilutions in it. And the type of dilution that you're using plays a big role in the outcome of how the remedy works. And we used in this one a series of numbers from mathematics on harmony. There was a mathematician, Italian mathematician in the last century, I'm not telling you who it was, who studied harmony in nature and came up with a series of numbers, how things in nature have to be broken down in order to appear to us as being looking harmonious. We looked those numbers to design a low potency accord and a high potency accord. And it's known in modern homeopathy, for example, if you use several low potencies of insulin, it will upregulate the insulin production in the body. If you use a high potency combination of homeopathics, it will downregulate it. And so we're using that principle with the same testing that you saw yesterday with the biochemistry. At the end, over the yin state, I put on the low potency of DHEA, nothing happens. I put in a high potency DHEA, the patient goes in a yin state. What does that mean? Yeah, it means he's taking too much DHEA. Yeah, it's rarely that that's not iatrogenic. It's rare that that's intrinsic, and so I can with this test kit I can very quickly distinguish in a patient all the hormones. I know whether they're too high or too low. And you know, if they're, let me give you an example. For example, if they get a 2+ on progesterone and a 4+ on estrogen, on low potency progesterone and low potency estrogen, what does it mean?
Needs more estrogen and half the amount progesterone.
It needs, relatively speaking, more estrogen than progesterone. Yeah, we're finding now that there is an absolute madness of prescribing progesterone in the country. It's broken out. So most people that come to me test for the high potency progesterone. You know, that's where they go in a yin state. They take too much progesterone and have a 6 or 7+ on estrogen because there's an irrational fear of natural estrogen now out, which has of course been seeded by the whatever, you know, the stupid powers at to be. A quick issue on the estrogen. The connection of estrogen supplements and cancer is real. However, it is synthetic estrogen and cancer. That was the connection that was studied. And there is very good evidence of several researchers that I'm in contact with that have not been able to publish their papers that show that taking natural estrogen lowers the cancer risk. Yeah? What was studied was the effect of a chemical substance on the female body, not the effect of estrogen on the female body. Yeah? So the estrogen test, the hormone test kit is very valuable. And when it comes to insulin, we can easily study the insulin response. You feed somebody a meal and you check afterwards with the insulin with the high potency and low potency. If the low potency checks, that means this person has trouble making insulin in the pancreas. Yeah? And you should use foods that put very little stress on the pancreas in terms of the insulin production. That means no carbohydrates. If the high insulin tests as a yin state, that means they want their insulin downregulated. The pancreas has an overshooting reaction of insulin. That means that the insulin receptors are blocked. That means this patient is toxic like hell. Yeah? So you can use your logical mind with this little test kit and make a lot of incredible decisions that are far more relevant than the saliva hormone test. You know, let me talk a little bit about that. The saliva testing of hormones has been shown whenever serious scientists look at this, that occasionally relates, you know, to the hormones of the patient, which is great. Yeah, and we've had, like, you know, we use the urine saliva test, the urine test for hormones for a long time because you get the 24-hour view of the hormones. And then I had some patients that came back with astronomical levels of like progesterone in the urine, and then we did a blood test and the woman was hormone deficient of progesterone. She was losing progesterone over the urine, and it was simply an expression of some sort of kidney dysfunction, and we saw that over and over. So I disregarded the urine test. Then the saliva testing came along 10 years ago, so we used that a lot. And then had the same experience with that when people had amalgam filling, so just one amalgam filling left in the mouth. It grossly distorted the saliva hormones compared to what they were in the blood. And so I personally have gone back for now to use occasional blood testing, and we found the clinical relevance of this is incredible. When you use this system of testing, you get in the right area with the hormones.
How will we get that?
It's in the back of the handout. Andriana would know, but it's Sharon Montezon or PHP, I think it's a let me see. MP it says on there, but there's a resource list in the back, and it should be in there. See if under S maybe, or under M, Sharon or Montezon.
The 3
No, Saber Sciences is a.
Yeah, Saber Science is a hormone test, it says.
That's a hormone, saliva hormone test. It's very popular from Gary Borken, or from Michael Borken.
Yeah.
Under M? Oh yeah, Montezon Sharon, here it is. Yeah, Mountain States. So I recommend you get the test kit, and then at the end today we're going to do a little video, like a little half-hour video on the testing procedure where you can review how that goes. Yeah, but in your notes just write down, if a high potency complex test, this hormone wants to be downregulated in the body. There's an excess in the system. And if the low potency tests, you need this hormone. And then we do all of our hormone regulation as much as we can with homeopathic hormones, with the same hormones come not only as a test kit, but as a dropper bottle. And you give it to the patient, like an average with the low potency, you need a little bit more. It's about 7 drops 3 times a day. With the high potency, it's only once a day, like 3 drops once a day or so. That's all that's needed. And it's fantastic. You get most hormones in mid-range that way by introducing the self-regulation. By using homeopathic hormones, you automatically detox the things that are blocking the hormone receptors. They are just tumbling out. So I may use homeopathic estrogen to detox mercury. Yeah, it comes out that way. It does not come out when you give the real hormone. And so in general, I do the hormone regulation for 6 months with the homeopathics. Then I review with my test, and they make a decision. And very often they end up needing maybe a tiny bit progesterone, like more like 15 milligrams a day, rather than 200. And also a little bit of estrogen comes up quite often, but very, very small amounts of it. And with that, I feel that we have a better grasp on the hormone situation than almost anybody. And the wonderful thing is you don't need to know anything. You don't need to know anything about hormone metabolism and how they're broken down, and which company makes what type of new tweak on it or so. It's very straightforward. Michael Borken is an interesting character in LA who has his own saliva hormone lab and designs a cream based on the hormone testing. Has made it very easy. And I'd say about 70% of the women do very good with that. But I use them at the end of my procedure, not at the beginning. Yeah? I use them at the end when the hormones are almost completely normal and there's only minor deviations. And then he designs a cream, and that's it's the end to it. And the wonderful thing is I stay innocently in the middle. I don't have to know anything about hormones or anything, what they're doing and stuff, because it's a lifetime study. And there's more misinformation out there than information. And so, and I like the work of Dr. Lee, I think, who died a few months ago, who introduced us to the natural progesterone. He should be getting a Nobel Prize after his death. He's done an incredible, wonderful work with this. But the connection was not recognized by any of the hormone people, that the reason all of us need hormones is a toxic issue. And why not address the toxic issue? Why not get to where the real problem is instead of fixing it symptomatically again, like we do in conventional medicine? Because that sets us aside, that we are scratching the surface. Okay, yeah?
Male hormones, testosterone, DHEA, do you work with that?
Yeah, yeah. Virtually every man I test is testosterone deficient these days. And so we work it just the same way. We test, what they need. They get on homeopathic testosterone first. And then after 6 months or so, I check again. And then we use either testosterone patch or sublingual lozenges for whatever they need. Yeah. It's, testosterone in men, remember also, it's the same misinformation out there. That men were treated with synthetic androgens for many, many years and had heart attacks and died early and got cancers and all kinds of nasty things. And the whole craze with athletes, taking all these synthetic androgens and kind of having all kinds of medical problems from us comes because they are not given bioidentical hormones. And there's wonderful research from Denmark from the 1960s and 70s showing that proper supplementation of natural testosterone prevents virtually all heart disease, extends the lifespan of men from 10 to 15 years, and so on and so forth. This is natural testosterone. And so it's like an absolute bigoted sort of false information out there, always throwing all the hormones in one pot and not distinguishing between the hormones that God made for us and the ones that some greedy chemist made down the street, for us. They're different. And so interesting is that, the hormones, God is not as creative as most of you are, because, the mosquito, the papaya, and the mango are using the same testosterone that you're using. I find it fascinating. The mango, out of all things, drives her sexual drive with the same testosterone that you do. The same is true for progesterone or estrogen. That same identical hormones. They're abundant in nature. They're everywhere. And so that was my hormone lecture.
Human growth hormone, precursor, homeopathics, those kind of things?
Yeah, the human growth hormone precursors. Human growth hormone is just, for me, just another hormone that gets blocked in its action, production, and actually can be blocked in both places, where it's produced and where it's supposed to attach to, and the same rules apply. We have growth hormone available, and it's not in a test kit for, we didn't want to draw too much attention to the test kit, but it can, Sharon has it, so she can give it, and homeopathic growth hormone works just wonderful for most people. And I'm against, we've seen some serious things with growth hormone. The trouble is when people have the chronic infections that we find in everybody, the growth hormone drives the growth of those bugs just as it drives ours. Just the mosquito and the Lyme disease and the fungus in you use the same growth hormone that you're using. They're no different from us. The same hormones that control all life. And so, we've seen a couple of older people die when they were put on growth hormone without all the precautions that I gave. Start homeopathically first, accompany it with detox. Do that for at least 6 months rigorously before you test again. Then at a much lesser level, you may then decide to give the real thing. Okay, what else in terms of questions? Who of you have understood yesterday our simple test for the biochemistry? Sort of. One person, okay.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Why don't you ask some questions about that so you really understand that? The testing we do for the vitamins and nutrients is so simple that most people, it washes right over their head. And what you need to hear from me to understand that? Mm-hmm.
Because I feel sometimes when we go into our small groups, we're kind of fumbling, and I don't feel I'm doing it the right way, or I might be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Just to see it once again. Okay. Any other requests on that one? Because it's important to me. Because
like one way may do it is to get into groups and have you lead somebody through a doctor. Like, okay, who's the doctor, and then this is what you do first. Get her, and then wait for everybody.
Well,
to
we won't have time to do that, to cover the rest of the stuff. I think if I put it on the video at the end and then make quickly available to you guys, so for your own review, I think that will be right. Maybe I show the hormone thing quickly, and then you see that type of testing one more time. Yeah. Amy, would you come? You need a volunteer. Yeah, come. So the nice thing for us is whether we test hormones, heavy metals, toxins, vitamin C or so, it's all the same. The only thing that's important in us is that we create a system that gives honest answers. I need to borrow somebody's pool filter. Okay, just remember that. Yeah, you had yours replaced.
Yeah.
Touch your thumb and little finger. Other hand, thumb and little finger. Now these are okay. Now the hand comes off the belly button or the filter of the thing. We test again. Thumb and little finger. Other hand. There's a switching. Now we find the point, or find out what meridian system is thrown off in her. It's the stomach meridian. You tap here with the other hand. No, this hand taps. The other one holds the switching.
So you test for D for switching first.
Yeah, to tap the stomach meridian with 5 fingers, the elbow has to come out this way. Otherwise, you won't be able to do the difficult to do the vertical like this. You bring it out like this and a little faster, a little bit more juice. Just imagine your body is a drum and you want to do a slow drum beat.
So she's holding her fingertip, she's holding the switch.
Yeah. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's better.
And hitting with the thumb as well.
Mm-hmm. All 5 fingers. The lung meridian comes here off the thumb, and when you hold the finger, so you're tapping the thumb also, you're stimulating the lung meridian, which is one of the most important meridians to be constantly stimulated.
When you do the back of the head, though, you're using like a karate chop, so if you miss.
Yeah, you miss a lot, but the thing is, I tap myself like this, and it's no problem for me. But the moment I check any patient or so, like 2 minutes later, they're tapping like this, and they're missing all the points across here. And so I've gone to say, well, do the karate chop, because then at least you're not missing the points. You're not making all the connections. But so if you can train yourself to have the wing the elbows out and really organize your fingers in a horizontal fashion and tap the points, it's better to tap that way. Okay, put it back down. Thumb and little finger, yeah, so that it solved that. So now we could go back and do the testing of the organs, but I'm not interested in that right now. I want to test our hormones. Yeah. In the past, we used to say you first have to straighten out the whole system, but then we found out that most practitioners in the beginning take like hours to straighten this out and never get to the point of testing the things that come afterwards. And then I realized it really isn't necessary. The thing in between is an extra issue where you fix the organs. And you may or may not want to do that. When you go to the testing at the end, the yin state testing, you say, regardless of what's wrong in the body, I'm looking now at what the body as a whole organism needs to function better. And by doing that, I trust that it will fix all the things in between. Yeah, that's that thought that's behind this. And to now get to the hormones, first of all, I test the high potencies. Yeah, asking the question: is there any hormone in her that's too much? Anything that's too much in her? Any excess? Yeah, and there is a response here, which could mean that. It could also be an allergic response. Yeah, it could be either there's a yin state in there that you want that homeopathic that downregulates the things, or it could be that there's an allergic reaction. So we're going through them, see which one it is. That's one of those two. To test out which one it is. And it's histamine, yeah? So there's a high level of histamine. I can check the other one that was here. Yeah, that's not testing. Okay, now I'm Going to look further and see what else shows up.
So the histamine could mean an allergy?
We get to it in a moment. Okay, so out of all the hormones, she has one that's circulating that's too high, that's histamine. High histamine levels, when histamine is too high in us and wants to be downregulated, it usually means the patient is in an allergic state. It could be pollen allergy, it could be a food allergy from breakfast that she's had, but she has an overshooting reaction. Yeah? And so I'm not going to ask her like what it is in her. And then there's several ways of downregulating it. One is simply to give high potency histamine a couple of times a day, and it will downregulate it. Yeah? The other one is to give a high whack of vitamin E, would downregulate it. And there's several other tricks, like quercetin, we talked about that yesterday briefly. There's then different strategies. Yeah, the strategies I'm not so interested in. I want to know what the biochemical truth is in the patient in the moment. Yeah? And so this gives that away. And then I do the low potencies and see, well, let's look on the other side, see if there's anything her body misses that it wants. And this is now identical to the testing of vitamins. Yeah, that part. Low potency means she needs something. There's nothing convincing in this section. There's a little bit of a weakness, but I'm going to skip that now because there's a little of a quantitative slight weakening in here. But here's something, a clear indicator that there's at least one hormone that she would like to get. So let's kind of see which one it is. It's not this one. That's a funny one. Let's see if it's this one. Sometimes it can also be a neighboring one if it's a strong. But this one, let's check the yin states. Make 2 right away. Yeah?
That's where I get confused.
Okay. Okay. What's the confusion of? So she goes weak. Yeah? And weakness can be always 2 things. It could be an allergic reaction or it could be a healing state.
And this is testing for healing?
Yeah, to distinguish it, we either do this, if that brings the strength back, it's an allergic state. And if this brings the strength back, it's a healing state. So this is a healing state. If something causes a healing state, that means her body wants it, she needs it. This is testosterone, which tests very, very often in women. Yeah. No, testosterone.
Oh, testosterone.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing for the sex drive and also to feel, to feel your testicles a little bit more. So that's the only thing we're finding. We went through thyroid and all the other things. So in women, it's fantastic to give it homeopathically. It doesn't grow your beard, doesn't do any of these things. It just turns on. First thing women notice is they sleep better, they have more energy. Then there's a second wave, the libido comes back, or gets stronger from where it is. And that they function better in the world. They're not so scared of people, they're not so scared to speak up. It's a psychological change, a little bit more there. Thank you. Yeah? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do you go back and then retest an open regulation to see if those low potencies are working with the autonomic system?
No, by definition, when somebody goes in a yin state, it automatically means that this medication is maintaining open regulation and moving the patient away from switching. As soon as anything causes a yin state, it moves the patient away from the pathological states of the autonomic nervous system. Yeah? So in the beginning you may want to do that. I did that for 15 years, questioning that and going back. Yeah? But you can skip that step and just trust the experience of us. Is there any question? I feel sort of like a strange silence here. That the silence contains a lot of questions. What are they?
You haven't done the music.
Yeah, no, that's coming later. Yeah.
This has to do with what she asked. I lost you at the point of when you're doing the yin mudra. After you know what it's either an allergy or a healing.
Yeah.
Could you just repeat that last?
Yeah, I'm happy to
one
say it.
again?
Because the main thing many of you will be struggling with is that you come from the wrong notion, from a mis-teaching that was out there, that a strong arm is good and a weak arm is bad. Yeah, to free you up from that. It's just like, like the teaching, that all women that have healing power should be burned on a stake. That was a teaching that was for a long time to believed to be absolutely true and unquestioned. Yeah? And I questioned the paradigm of the strong arm in the same way. Yeah? And so that's the first thing that I hear inherently in the questions around this. And so what I'm encouraging you to accept as a working model is that under the new conditions that you created with open regulation and the patient not being switched, this is a prerequisite of this. When this is achieved, then a weak arm occasionally means that the patient has a bad reaction to this. But more frequently it means the patient actually has a healing reaction to this. Yeah? It's a complete reversal of the current paradigm, and it's a paradigm shift, if you want, and therefore it's difficult to take that for a while.
And then you're testing after that. Could you just
Yeah.
repeat that?
And so when we have a weak arm, we don't know anything yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Vice versa, when we have a strong arm, we don't know anything yet. We need to then do a series of secondary tests to figure out what kind of weak arm is this. Is this a good weak arm or is it a bad weak arm? Yeah? And when we do that with the aid of two tests, this one, and where we hold both vagal nerves, ideally both. If you're testing without an assistant, you only have one hand left, so you only test on one side. If that strengthens the arm again, brings the strength back, it clearly was an allergic reaction affecting the parasympathetic nervous system. And the other test that modifies the weak arm response is placing between one and several yin mudras into the circuitry. And if that brings the strength back up, it means it was a good week. Yeah. In ART2, we show how we can use specific neurotransmitters instead of the yin mudras and place them on the signal enhancer and answer the question very definitely, this is an allergic reaction or this isn't. But because I've seen people that weren't really fit in muscle testing do terrible things with that. I'm not teaching you certain things yet in this workshop. I want you first go a little bit the slower way and stay sometimes a little bit in a gray area where you don't know, is this a good week or a bad week? That will happen to you, where you don't know. And then when you're not sure, don't give it. Yeah? But if it's a clear yin state, then give this medication and be absolutely trusting it. Yeah? And this is when your whole medicine, your whole healing thing is going to change. Because suddenly all the things that you're going to see are going to make sense. They actually, when they actually find a diabetic, they actually test for insulin. Yeah? Which is like any kinesiologist would be thrilled to see that. Yeah? Or if I have a patient with cancer, it actually tests in my system. Yeah? You hold the cancer and it actually tests. They always test for blocking. Yeah? They block the system. In kinesiology, there's that myth out, oh yeah, cancer is really difficult because when we touch a cancer, the strong arm stays strong. Yeah? It doesn't show up. Anybody here who's done kinesiology who's honest enough will say that, yes, there was a problem with cancer, somewhere it's prostate cancer, and the strong arm stays strong. But not with this test. Yeah? With this test, it's a weak arm, and immediately goes strong when I touch any cancer. In our system, any cancer shows up immediately, the tiniest skin cancer or the biggest breast cancer, and then allows us to test medication against it. You're in a whole new ball game with that. Yeah? And so, and it will, it's there's a consensus reality out there, and probably there isn't enough people out there yet practicing this way. So you have to create it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it's just me. If I tell my doctor the term open regulation, is he going to know what that means? Because I'm not familiar with that. I had never heard that term before I came here. So if I use that term,
Just give him the page on the book on the handout that describes it. It describes it very nicely.
Okay.
I try to use simple language. Yeah. Anybody in Europe would know. Yeah. No, it's a thing that all the teachers from Dr. Voll onwards have used this term. You know, all of people that do bioenergetic medicine know the term block regulation.
Okay.
And many of the tests and procedures are based on that. And there's certainly many others than mine that are devoted to that subject. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have an allergy, could you actually also need it? Would you ever prescribe it and then have them do the 9 points and test them?
To do what?
If they have an allergy, it's
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
But could it ever be that they actually also need it and that they take it and then they
Yeah.
do these
Yeah.
9?
It happens very, for example, with progesterone. Very often, that women are progesterone deficient, but they are highly allergic to it.
So how do you determine at that point?
Well, as long as somebody is allergic to it, they can't take it. There's no point in taking it. So, in this case, the most intelligent thing is to desensitize the patient to it, which is something we're not doing in this course. We do in other courses. If there's a hormone allergy, there's always a psychological issue behind it. If it's a female hormone, it's usually an issue with the female ancestry, your mother, your grandmother, something that happened on the female side. If it's a male hormone, it's usually something on the other side of the family. You can pretty much predict where it is, but that's not how we're working. It's just something we notice afterwards that yes, that really was that way. But with our psychokinesiology, we can always track those issues easily, resolve it, and then in the same session, retest the progesterone and we'll show the need. No more the allergy elimination with psychological work is instant. Yeah, there's no 24-hour waiting period. There's no 6-week waiting period. It's instant, and people can instantly go on the homeopathic. That will upregulate it. Yeah.
When you're testing for healing and you're doing the yin mudra, if you don't get a healing reaction the first time, you add another until 4? Is that, and then,
yeah. And the short compromise is to put it on the signal enhancer. Yeah, then you have enough yin mudras right there, and it's a quick way to distinguish. But if you want to quantify vitamins or so, how much is it? Then you have to do it with single hands without this.
okay.
Yeah.
Your concept of this, I think you call it deep switching. I think I'm getting confused if you test it this way or with the filter on the plate. When you gave that last demonstration, did you test for the deep switching first?
Yeah, yeah, because it's easier in the flow. So, just to repeat the steps, the first step is I put the pool filter on here, which is identical to doing this. There's no difference. Yeah? And then I test, and the regulation was open. And then without taking this off, I have them do this, and have them do this against the weak arm. Let's see if it goes strong. Going strong would be a problem. Then I take this off, then I have a strong arm, and then test this again and see if a strong arm goes weak. Yeah? From here on, basically, from the switching onwards, is the easiest way for you to learn is this. From the switching onwards, every test has to be done twice. Has to be done with this and without it. Every food has to be tested, whether it blocks you, that you can only answer by this on, or whether a strong arm goes weak. And if a strong arm goes weak, there's 2 possibilities. It could be a mild allergic reaction, or it could be a yin state. A mild allergic reaction is this one. A yin state is this one.
So this is actually quite a profound shift, because like testing the old way, I've been missing a certain percentage of things all along.
Well, not only a certain percentage, you've been missing all the primary things. Yeah, you've been only treating the secondary stuff. Of course, if you treat enough of the secondary stuff, eventually the patient will get well. But if you start with the primary stuff, they get there much quicker. It doesn't mean that a ride is easier. It's shorter, it's more direct, and it has more to do with the reality of with the truth of the patient right now. The psychological issues that come up when you work with this, you get to the main issue right away. You're right there, you know, when dad left the family when you were 2 years old. It's not going to when you were 23 and you went through your first divorce, and then in high school when your teacher kind of humiliated you. That's all skipped. When you work with this, you're at the primary issue. You're there.
And am I understanding it that primary, if you get to the primary issue, then that often is on one of those higher levels. It's emotional, psychological,
yeah.
or something. But your way of teaching us to treat that now is to tap the tap.
Yeah.
But am I understanding that you have other methods of treating
Yeah.
it? Maybe
It's basically like this, you know, when the primary things always have higher causes. So it's a trickling down, so like a slow snow falling kind of onto the lower levels, recreating the symptoms. And the tapping is on the second level. By doing the tapping regular, it intercepts that snowfall. It stops going beyond the second level and leaves the first level alone. The first level can recover, even though the problem on the higher level isn't resolved yet. And it's a wonderful way of working with it, because it's much better than giving antidepressants or things on a physical level that are given for a lifetime that correct the effect of the snowfall on the physical body. You're just intercepting the snowfall until you learn the techniques where you can go up and resolve it where it comes from.
But it doesn't clear the third and fourth level.
No.
Problem.
No.
So that's what
There's no effect on it whatsoever.
So
Yeah.
your advanced workshops will teach us how to do it. Thank you.
And the advanced workshops are only advanced. They're not advanced in terms of like what you need to know or so. It's just because you need to have the basics of the muscle, the mechanics of the muscle testing down, you know. And then the advanced workshops, the actually material is much easier to learn than this one. This is the hardest of my workshops, yeah, because your mind has to shift in certain ways.
In a situation where somebody shows up with an allergy and you tell them, well, this is an area, maybe a psychological issue, and they, in a sense, spontaneously combust, they connect inside, that maybe have some tears or something, can you go back and check and see if the allergy cleared, and can you trust that this allergy is gone now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
And allergies, just to say that is the last thing maybe on that theme, allergies are representative of a dynamic state. You know, your system is, as long as you're alive, in a dynamic state, and allergies come and allergies goes. You know, there's life will always bounce you up against the psychological issues, and many of your issues are spontaneously resolving by you actually making different decisions and changing your life. You know, we all are in that together, you know, and certainly in no way ahead of you with that. You know, it's just observing patients going through life. You know, many patients drop their illnesses and their allergies and their things, you know, spontaneously by resolving stuff. Okay, last question.
Okay,
Yeah.
so back to the levels, the 1 through 5. If you're saying to elaborate on the tapping takes you to level 2 only.
Yeah.
I'm confused. On the first day, you're talking about AK and how it's not sufficient for testing for nutrients. But yesterday, we were using muscle testing to test for nutrients. And I'm confused on the step between.
Well, first of all, I don't want to badmouth any other technique. Yeah, so I do that, but I really don't want to.
That's okay.
No, the only difference is with in AK, when you have a patient that you've sort of tested, you've done you've balanced your whatever, you did a certain balancing or so, and on the way, as you go along, you check for nutrients, that would balance the things that you find. Usually in AK it is, when a muscle is weak, you put a vitamin on. When it strengthens the patient, that's what goes into your final prescription at the end. Yeah? This is fixing single symptoms on the way, which is completely legitimate. Yeah? What we're doing is at the very end, when we're through with all the testing, all the balancing is done without giving anything, without fixing anything, without the only symptom fixing we're doing is so far with the tapping. There's some other things I will introduce today, but there's very little that we do while fixing the body. We do it in the most simple of all ways. And then when we're done, then we're asking not the liver what it wants to get well, we're asking the whole organism what it wants to get well. And that's the only shift. And The shift is that in AK you never give something that makes the arm go weak. You just don't. Yeah. So you're missing a lot of goodies that are in there.
And so still.
So the technique is the same. The skill of muscle testing is the same, but the interpretation of the findings and the philosophy behind it is quite different.
Okay, so it's still, is that on level 1 you can still test for the biochemistry of what the patient needs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can I ask one more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
something else. So yesterday, when we've been practicing and we're getting all the things that correct, and every time we get back in our group, there's something else that needs to be fixed. And so, for example, when he was up yesterday, we never had found him hit and switch, and you did.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be either we just weren't sensitive enough to pick it up, or it just keeps peeling layers? And so I'm wondering, when
Yeah.
patients keep coming in
Mm-hmm.
so frequently, they're going to have a humongous list, and should they be doing just the last thing we gave,
Yeah.
or should
Mm.
they only be selecting after 6 weeks?
Always with each visit sort of is a holistic event on its own. You know, it's like a picture that you finished. When you have a new visit, you reevaluate new. Now I usually let the old program run as a backdrop when I start a new one, and then maybe on the second or third visit you discontinue the first program. You know, or by retesting the nutrients in terms of the yin states, you very quickly kind of find out what's done and what isn't done. But when you're testing honestly, you know, those of you who muscle test honestly, you're going to find in a group situation it is impossible to establish like a definitive program for somebody. What you're reporting is just a result of that you've actually been, some of the people here, testing really honestly. Yeah? That there's a lot of energy fields in the room, they're overlapping, they're oscillating, and you're picking that up and so changing who we are is congruent with my teaching on the second level. Yeah? What we talked about yesterday. And when I'm here up front, all your minds are focused on this. And so I can look like the big star here who get better results or more accurate results or so, but it's just because of your focus that you're creating. And it makes it real easy when we have one person test it. The moment you all would be testing and I test somebody here, I would underlie the same laws. We kind of go, oh, you know. So it's just be aware that the energetic testing is subject to all the laws of physics that are in the moment in there. And the physics in a group, you know, with 60 people or so, is that it's not chaos, it's very well organized energy fields that are floating through the rooms, but many of them at different times, and they're not contained, they're going wild, you know, they're overlapping, interacting, and so forth. And so what you should find on a patient is fairly chaotic responses. And yet, that's the best we can do in learning situations like this. And so, basically, you know, just consider that a sign when you've suffered from that yesterday or the day before. It's a sign that you're honest. You know, those who get very stable results in the middle of chaos are the ones that put their umbrella over, which isn't wrong, you know, for the practicing. As long as you know you do that, it's completely legitimate. You know, to put this umbrella over the patient and find the things that you're creating in the patient. For the learning situation is absolutely legitimate. Yeah, but just know when you're doing that, when you're not doing that. Learn that inner movement. We had some beautiful experiences with that in Germany when I was teaching. I had an assistant who had this the pathological empathy for people. I mean, people were there, and she was assisting me, and I was sort of finding things in here that I knew her very well. I knew that were her things I was finding here. and the moment I did, Sabine, withdraw it. And she kind of, and then I could test again. Yeah, and it's this thing that we nicknamed, like after her name, the Sabine phenomenon. And it's a going term now over there, and everybody is aware of. There are times we do that, you know, when we're fixing our attention on somebody else, our mind, our mental field is there, and we're finding stuff that belongs to us in a person. And so it's there's aspects of meditation, you know, and so an inner discipline come in here. You know, so an inner martial art that you have to learn, and I'm not always good at that. I make mistakes. At the end of the day, when I'm tired and beaten up and haven't been able to stay clear, my energy field, I get affected, by the suffering of people, and it gets into me, and I may lose my center. But maybe what sets me aside from many people is that I usually know when I lost it. It doesn't mean I'm not faking my way through the rest of the day, to look, responsible, and people have flown in, and stuff. So, but I usually know then to modify my instructions and start using my mind a little bit more in terms of my conclusions. What I do, I don't trust as much anymore what I found, and I modify it with my common sense. And kind of see, can this really be? Is this really so likely that this is a true outcome? It happens to me. It's not very often anymore, but it happens. And just kind of learn that inner dance. To recognize, and it's a learning process. This whole muscle testing thing is a growth. It's a growth thing. You see, like some of the old muscle testers, you often notice that people have worked that way, have gone through a tremendous growth in the years of having worked like this, more so than the guy sitting on the other side of the desk with a prescription pad. There's just not much growth in that. And so if you choose to go this way, just to make this choice based on your own growth, not even disregard what happens to the patients or so, but for your own growth, this is a better process. And I promise you, we now sort of shifted very much in my own thinking. I like in 1975, I met Nogier, who was using the VAS. It's a pulse test instead of muscle testing, which is much more elegant, much quicker, much more rapid. And so in my own testing, when I do psychological work, I prefer this test much more. It's more elegant. You don't see anything anymore. There's no drama, with the arm going weak or strong. There will be other ways of testing, but it's a growth curve. It's a certain growth that you do. You master one technique, and then the next one, and then the next one. It never ends. And the main thing is really like the only thing that stays with you, what changes inside you, and learning to expand your mental field and to retract it, to confine yourself energetically, to create boundaries for yourself, to notice when patients don't have any boundaries and trespassing your boundaries, either on a biophysical level or on a higher mental level, how there's a constant conflict going on between practitioner and a patient on the mental levels. There's actually a war going on there, while down here they're exchanging all these friendly nothingnesses, sort of like the friendly small talk down here, but up here there's actually a war going on. And you become aware of those things, as you just go along with it. And it certainly, it's a way of growth. It's a type of spiritual growth that you do with this. It's a path. It's one of the many paths that are there, and it can be part of your path, or it can be the whole thing. Okay, I'd like to shift a little bit and talk about the teeth, as one of the primary issues that we look at. The teeth come in on our list of the 7 factors in several ways. The teeth are one of the main factors contributing to number 1, both in terms of the heavy metals and other dental materials that contaminate our inner environment, and the microorganisms. There's over 200 known microorganisms in a normal, healthy mouth, and there's many more in a mouth with periodontal disease or cavities, cavitations, and so forth. In terms of the nutritional deficiencies, the teeth play a huge role. People with poor occlusion can't break down their food properly, they get malabsorption. They're the ones that get the zinc deficiency and the selenium deficiency. The teeth play a huge role in what you find in terms of all the vitamins that you give somebody. Very often as an outcome of you not being able to chew properly. Number 3, the structural problems within the whole craniosacral mechanism, and it's unfortunate that the osteopaths haven't really largely as a community caught onto this. Your cranium gets thrown off by a bad bite. You know, if your bite doesn't fit, all the cranial bone gets thrown out every time you put the teeth together. And it's a joke when you think, you know, you do craniosacral therapy once, you know, you fix the cranium, you spend an hour, probably $300 of the patient, you know, on it, and the next time he swallows, the whole thing is lost again. You know, you swallow 3,000 times a day. To swallow, you have to bring your lips together and your teeth. Yeah, that's aside from the chewing. Yeah, and so the first thing, and the same with the chiropractic, you know, like because the bad bite throws out your neck, it throws out your low back, your ilium, and so forth. And the proper approach is to fix the bite first and get that right first, get that stable first, and then do one cranial session and then you're done. Yeah, rather than getting 100 cranial sessions and never be done, or you know, get one neck adjustment after that. And so, for me, the teeth are the key piece in the structural arena. Then the energetic disturbances, it goes unsaid that each tooth relates to an organ system, to a meridian system, and very often the chronic gallbladder or the chronic stomach condition is because one of the teeth sitting on that meridian is disturbed, you know, through filling, a crown, a root canal, an extraction, and so forth. Food intolerances. We've seen food intolerances dramatically improve when the teeth are improved. Yeah, the teeth are the beginning of the digestive tract, and food allergies have everything to do with the digestion and digestive tract. You know, the stomach acid, the way the food is propelled downward, you know, by the peristaltic movement, that can kind of go backwards. When you have, for example, a wisdom tooth cavitation, you often get this reflux. You know, people think, oh, you got a hiatal hernia and reflux. Bullshit. You got a wisdom tooth cavitation that needs to be fixed. You know, it has nothing to do with a lack of histamine blockers, you know, of H2 blockers, or a lack of the sphincter muscles here being able to close. You got a cavitation in the mouth. The digestion starts with the teeth. And if something here isn't right, everything downward is going wrong. Yeah? It's the same like, you know, when you start a relationship, you know, everything that bothers you early in a relationship is going to bother you a hell lot more later in the relationship. Yeah? Everything that kind of is not right when you start your digestion is going to be multiplied by a factor of thousands, you know, when it goes lower down in the digestive tract. The geopathic stress is probably the only thing that is exempt from having to do with the teeth. And then the next one here, the unresolved psycho-emotional conflict. I could talk for days on the relationship of how unresolved psycho-emotional trauma expresses itself in the teeth. Every aspect of your teeth is affected by this. Some wonderful German publications and research, for example, like you know, there's the women, they often, you know, they have these narrow arches and the canines are sort of sitting outside. I don't know how that's called in dentistry here. You know, these are the children that didn't fit in their family. You know, they fell outside the circle of the family. There's a direct metaphorical relationship of how your teeth look and what your position was in the family. A direct thing. You know, when we had a very oppressive kind of German type family, sort of, you know, with very strict rules, your arches are going to be very narrow with no space for the teeth. If you had a family where everything goes, you know, you get these nice kind of wide arches. You see it often in black people, you know, like Madonna with that little thing in here. These are often the Californian type families where everything goes, you know, nobody's giving you any rules or so. You know, the teeth kind of, you know, do this also. And you can directly see, you know, just by looking at somebody's mouth, you know, if there was space for them in the family or if there wasn't. And it's just unbelievable how that correlates and how much you can fix with that. You know, when Dino and Ara worked on me in the early 90s, and I was one of those people, you know, with very, very narrow arches, and Ara made an expansion device for me. And I was at the time, I was like 43 years old, you know, I was way too old, you know, to do this. And within a few weeks, my arches expanded by over 1/2 inch. And then Ara said, based on his experience, well, you know, when you stop wearing this appliance, it's all going to go back. I stopped wearing it and never went back. You know, it was just the last step because I'd done all the psychotherapy that was needed. And because of that, my system was ready. Just needed a tiny little impulse to expand, and it held the expansion. You know? In fact, my teeth have been expanding ever since. Yeah? So there's now like more gaps. I mean, more gaps between my teeth, you know, sort of because they kept that movement going. Once it was unlocked, so that, you know. And so there is a lot of relationship between all these and the teeth. And so we want to dedicate like a little section this morning on the teeth. I want to first kind of break it down very quickly in the way we're testing for it, and then ask Dino to talk to us a little bit, and then show the CD. I don't know where the recording device is. Do we have that sort of set? Annie, would you mind sort of, while I'm talking, sort of like actually already setting that up, because I don't need the light here anymore. So, number one, toxicity from the teeth or other sources of toxins. There's two ways of testing. You know, one way of testing toxins, which is our preferred way, is what I showed you yesterday briefly, is the ART2 procedure, the simple direct resonance between a toxin that you hold onto the patient and the toxin inside the body. I'm not going to show this to you, yeah, because it's a whole, there's some caveats and stuff that we teach in ART2. What we're doing here, we're using the same procedure as we use with the biochemistry, and show if the patient shows either an allergic response to a metal or contaminant, or if they show a healing response to a detox agent. This we found is the most precise way of answering the question whether the patient needs anything. I just show that briefly. Amy, would you come here? Bob, would you mind coming? Bob, would you be our patient? Yeah. So we have, for this we need two things. We need a heavy metal test kit. The address where we get our test kit from is in the handout, in the resource list. So we've got open regulation, thumb and little finger, other hand. Okay, repeat the switching on this side and on the other side. So he has no switching, he's got open regulation. So my first thing is, do any of the metals block his regulation when I bring him in the field? That's a strong allergic response. Yeah? So I do the same thing. I cover them. That stays open. Yeah, and there's a response. On this side, I find out which metal is it. And notice how far I walk. I may show you in a moment. Yeah, and he's testing for methyl mercury. These are these two ampoules here. Let me see if... Not this one. Okay, so he has a strong response to one of the two types of methyl mercury. Doesn't really matter for me which one it is. Let me show you when I bring the test kit too close to him. Let's say I put it here next to me because I want to easily work with him. Yeah, he already has blocked regulation. Yeah, and I can sort of, you know, demonstrate that somewhere here for him the cutoff is here. You know, but if I have the test kit anywhere sitting too close to him, his system is already changed by the test kit, and be aware of that. Yeah, as an issue. And so let me see. I forgot which one.
Quantitatively related to toxins in
To the amount. You can measure the amount of allergic response by length. Yeah. What's the other one? So this is the way we establish when somebody is allergic to us. There's wonderful research by Vera Steskol in Sweden, and she'll be here in July when we do our heavy metal meeting. She said the most acknowledged researcher in the area because she's developed the only test that can test body burden of toxic metals. Yeah, it's called the ELISA test. What she's testing is the memory of the lymphocytes of the patient to see if they've met the substance somewhere on their trip through the body, on their scouting trips through the body. Has this lymphocyte met mercury and how much was it? And so she's exposing the lymphocytes of the patient to a small amount, to defined dilutions of different toxins, and then sees what the lymphocyte response is to that. And if the lymphocytes have seen a lot of the substance, there's a lot of response. If they've seen very little of it, there's very little response. And the quantity of the response of the lymphocytes responds directly to body burden. It is the only test out anywhere in the world.
It's a blood test.
It's a blood test. And this test is not available in the US. And this is a test, Joel, that I would love to bring here with you, to one of the, could be tucked into any lab. The equipment is fairly inexpensive, but is, in terms of science and the scientific community, the only test that's acknowledged. And the only test in bioenergetic testing that 100% correlate to that test is this test. Yeah, this is how we developed this test. We were looking for something that would show what the ELISA test is showing. Yeah, so when a patient on this test gets blocked regulation from a toxin, this toxin is in the patient, and it is in the patient in high quantities. It needs to be addressed. Yeah? And now the detox agent that will get the stuff out of him is the agent that unblocks him. Yeah? That's the only ever rule in this course that you're going to get. All the other things are just observations, but this is like a stiff rule now.
Would you say it again?
Yes. When a toxin is blocking the patient, it is present in the patient in high amounts. It could be that all of the other metals are in him also, but not in high amounts, and they're not in the right order. You need to treat the one first that blocks the patient. You don't need to know anything else about the other toxins, but you need to know if you find a toxin that blocks a patient, they need to be treated for that one. That is today in order to treat the patient for it. And the treatment is that treatment which unblocks the patient for the substance. There's two conditions for the treatment. Yeah? There will be many things now that unblock him. That's how we find the things that will be effective. There will be only one of these things that causes the deepest yin state, and that will be the one. So we can now very quickly move through the substances. So I'm going to use a second filter here and put a few things on there. Yeah, let's use some of our favorites first. So here's NDF plus, yeah, that unblocks him for it. We do some cilantro that unblocks him for it. We do some chlorella that unblocks him for it. Let's use Jeannie's chlorella here. There's a new product that Adriana's husband has formulated for us. I don't have that here. And let's test, that's LipoFlow, what's it called? Detox Max Plus, yeah, is the other name for it. Oh yeah, okay, well, let's leave it there. So let's assume we have four things here, yeah, sort of that unblock him for it. What? Yeah, the methyl mercury is sitting on the signal enhancer, yeah, causing blocked regulation in him, and all of these things, by putting them on, open the regulation. That's a condition number one for detox agent. Condition number two is, we want to know, is any of these causing a deeper yin state than the other in terms of this overall effect on the body? To test the yin state, we always test it without the hand on the belly button, without the pull filter. It's a strong arm going weak. We don't have a strong arm when we have this thing on. Yeah, so now everything comes away. We're now evaluating these substances completely independent of the heavy metal issue. We want to know, are these substances good for the whole organism or not? We know they're good for the heavy metal issue. But the patient is more than just a heavy metal issue. The patient is a complete interaction of 100,000 chemical reactions per cell per second. There's a lot more than just heavy metal toxicity that we're looking at. And we want to know, is any of these things actually good for him as a whole? It can be good for an issue and bad for the whole thing. So now we strip him of everything. There's nothing on the signal enhancers. We've got a strong arm. And now I re-evaluate these substances just like I do with the vitamins yesterday or with the hormones or any other thing. I want to know, is this thing good for him or not? So I put one type of remedy on him, and yes, it causes a healing state. Bob, you do 2 yin mudras. And you do another one. Okay. Sunshine Chlorella gives us a 3+. I'll put that here. So when you see it, sort of like I make it easy for you to look. So here is 0, no, so here's actually allergic to 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is position number 3. Okay, here comes Detox Max Plus. It's a combination of phospholipids and EDTA. Bob, do 2 yin mudras. Do 1 only. Do none. Do 1. Okay, this gives us a 1+.
Can the assistant do the mudra or?
Anybody can do the mudras. Yeah, even strangers can come in and do the mudra. Okay, I do the cilantro. Okay, Bob, 1, 2. We get a 3+ on the cilantro. Now, keep in mind, this is Swiss cilantro, this is not the American one. So, and now we go to NDF+. Does anyone have a foot pad here? One of those Kinuk? Oh, we got one here. Let's throw that in there also in the mix. NDF+. Okay, Bob. 1, another one, 2, 3, 4. Tim, this is your lucky day. So we're getting a 4+ on this one. Now, how can we figure out whether we should give a combination of these or just one? Yeah, so first of all, to get clear, yeah, so this was a 1+, these were 3+, this is a 4+. The more plus, the better for the patient. Yeah? All of them were addressing the heavy metal issue. It's clear, yeah, you would give the 4+ as the main thing. Now, how can I find out if any of the other ones has a synergistic effect with this one? Yeah. So, so first of all, we go back to our 4 yin mudras. Yeah, we get a strong arm, and I simply can see if any of these other things are now deepening the yin state if I add that in also. So I see, like, you know, does chlorella actually, when I give it as an absorbing agent in the gut, does it really increase the effect of this or not? And the answer is
Yes.
And it increases it by 2 yin states. Yeah? This is how I know what Tim doesn't know, that by actually adding in the chlorella to the NDF, you're actually gaining even more ground. Yeah? Adding a relatively cheap other thing, you get more mileage out of the NDF. Let's look at the cilantro. Does cilantro have a synergistic effect with NDF+? Does it?
No.
Yeah. Now let's take one away. And let's take another one away. No. Oh, okay. So Bob took one away. And Bob, take one more away. Okay. Do one more. Do one more, Bob. Yeah, that's one. Okay. So it actually reduces the NDF from a 4+ to a 2+. That's called a negative synergistic effect. Yeah? So cilantro actually would worsen the outcome. We actually give something expensive, and with something other expensive on top of it, you actually lessen the effect. These are synergistic effects. And now if somebody comes to me with 50 vitamins, it's not possible to calculate those anymore, because it would take hours virtually to test for synergy. But okay, now I want to check, does the EDTA with the phospholipids add something? So do you have 4 yin mudras? The answer is right away, no, it doesn't add anything. If it doesn't add anything, I don't want to go through the process now. It's out. Let's do the foot pad and see if that adds anything. I don't know actually if it does. I'm going to be called on the mat now. Whew. Okay. And we're out of yin mudras now. What do I do now? Okay, now put it on the signal enhancer. Yeah. And it is certainly a synergistic yin state. More so than with the chlorella in this case. And now I could add the chlorella in addition to it and see if it goes beyond it. But if you're in such a high number of yin states, it's hard to do. Or, of course I can.
Be interesting.
So I put that on there. So let's do the same arrangement here. Yeah, and we see that we're now beyond the yin states that I can muster up with the equipment I have here. And this is where eventually we need the ampoules, for testing for the number of yin states that you learn in ART2. And so this would be for him the perfect program. First we find a thing that antidotes the strong response to the toxin and get a narrow selection of items that would address that issue. And then we look at the whole organism by leaving everything else away and just looking at it like the vitamin testing, which one is good for him. And that's a fantastic way of testing, that acknowledges a lot of human principles, doesn't violate a lot of the more metaphysical laws that are inherent in this work. That's sort of how I learned my stuff about detox, and I'm very content. The thing is, I was with Louisa Williams at the time. That was in 1990. We were the ones that went out and said, kind of, chlorella got a lot of magic in it for detoxing people, and we were beaten up and down, like by everybody. So it can't be and doesn't work. And then different laboratories joined in and used very poor testing equipment to prove to us that we were lying and cheating and stuff. And yet. Then Tim Ray came along and nanonized the chlorella and the cilantro so everybody can digest it and break it down, and created the product that in a study that was done by a Greek friend of mine in Russia. He got a lot of support from the Russian government. He got a $2 million grant to test different detox agents that were available, anything from DMPS, DMSA, chlorella, cilantro, EDTA, you name it. The amino acids and stuff. And in a Russian study, it was found that NDF was by far the most potent, most effective drug to detox heavy metals. And it is based on my work, with the cilantro and chlorella. And I'm proud that that happened. And I'm glad that somebody joined their intelligence to this to create something. And with this kind of testing, you find the truth out, about stuff. It's like whenever there's a new wave kind of running through, now it's like the treatment of Lyme disease with Samento, with cat's claw, there's this wave kind of sweeping through that only has to do with effective marketing strategies of people, nothing with the truth. And we can very quickly with this technique take it apart and kind of, okay, well, I feel often like the kid, with the emperor's clothes kind of story, kind of say, well, that emperor, definitely has no clothes on. And there's a lot of things, that kind of waves that swoop through, that with this technique we find really there's nothing to it. And most things work occasionally. So this is the testing of heavy metals inherent to the teeth. These are the teeth-related toxins, but they can also be fish-related or other. We do that in other courses. We talk more about toxicity. But what you need for this testing is a test kit with this, or you get from your friendly dentist, you get ask him to fill a glass vial, you know, that you use for blood drawing, you know, the vials, you ask him to fill them with amalgam debris that he drills out of people, and so you can have your minimum testing equipment for this phenomenon, yeah? And then you put that on. If that blocks the patient, you know that parts of the amalgam are scattered in the body. You can test your detox agents, you can prioritize them with this technique, and then find the solutions for your patient. That's the easiest, cheapest way of doing it for all of you. So I take one question, yeah.
Can you put the antidote and the poison on the same signal enhancer?
Yeah, you can put the antidote and the poison on the same signal enhancer. Yeah, it's an important question. Yeah. Okay, so I know for most of you, when you actually follow this, it's actually in itself logical. It doesn't violate anybody's intelligence. And yet, when you come home, you're kind of going to go, I promised for years to write a good book on this, a good manual. And the reason I haven't is that we met so much opposition in the field that I hadn't dared to put this together yet. But the reason the manual isn't quite, doesn't say everything, is because virtually hundreds of people have stolen my work and published like on my work in different fields or so, that I'm not disclosing everything anymore until I get to write my book. And so that's going to be sometime soon. Yeah, so
Your video will show.
the video will show, and the video that we're producing today will have all the relevant details in it. Now I want to go to the other aspect of dentistry that's the most important, and that's the structure. And Dino will come up here in a moment. I just want to show you this briefly, how we're testing structure. Amy, would you come up again and be my victim, and then we need like a volunteer, somebody who's got some structural thing. Yeah, would you mind, Serena? I like Serena because we've tested her recently, and I know that she doesn't have a lot of other stuff going on. She's wired. Gudrun, would you be so kind and make me a cup of coffee with a little sugar and milk in it? Yeah, the whole thing. I slept, we moved last night. I moved, while I'm teaching a seminar, I'm also moving house. And so last night I had to sleep in a new place where the heating doesn't work, and there's a street light right outside, and there was no dark curtain, and it was like... Okay, so the precondition to test anybody is that the regulation is open. Let me do it with the hand on the ears so you see a little variation on the theme. And you can also do, you know, the way we used to teach regulation is only on the belly button. And initially we did it only with the patient's hand. Hold it. Yeah, and close your eyes. And do it twice with eyes open and eyes closed to see if you can detect block regulation that way. And eyes closed. Sometimes you can pick up regulatory differences by doing this modification. It's not important that you learn this, but since Freddie Ulan has picked up my old technique, at least I want to teach it also, because it is mine. Next thing is, I hold regulation, it's open, she does the thumb and little finger on the right side, left side, okay, it doesn't block. Now without anything, she repeats it, right side, left side, both stay strong. Yeah, strong arm stays strong, there's no change, weak arm stays weak, there's no change. All you have to do, does it change or doesn't it change? Okay, now we jump straight from here for testing the jaw. Now what are the things that can go wrong with the jaw? One is the three main issues that we find is, one is, and I learned this all from Dino, so I should really let him say it, but you need to hear it several times. Yeah? The one issue is that the lower jaw is sitting too far back. This is the one that we find commonly. The second issue is that the upper arch is too narrow. It's like a cage, where the lower jaw doesn't really fit in. The third issue is that the teeth are too flat. There's not enough height of the teeth. I'm going to start, let me put a glove on, just to show you the simplicity of how to test it. So let me do the filter because it's just easier for me. Yeah, we test against open regulation.
Other than putting a hand this way.
Yeah, the same thing. Just it frees up one hand, the filter. That's all it does. Oh, now I want to question her system in regards to the position of the lower jaw. Yeah? What would happen if the lower jaw is already sitting too far back if I push it back more? What would happen to the regulation? It would block the regulation. Yeah, because she's already in a critical position, and if I just push it over the edge, the system is open now. Yeah? What would happen if the jaw is sitting naturally too far back and I move it forward? What would be the extreme that could happen? No, if it's sitting too far back and I'm releasing this, and the body says, "Oh, thank you very much," what would happen? That would be a yin state. Yeah? So I can assess now the position of any joint in the body by pushing it in one direction and pushing it in the other direction and seeing what her responses are. That will tell me where the joint really wants to be. We know that right now it's in a position wherever it is, wherever the dentists, the hundreds of dentists that have worked on her have put it. Yeah? But does it mean that's where God put it? Yeah? As long as you consider the dentist to be God, then that's where God put it, or a tool of God. Sort of, we're all tools of God, but sometimes we're not exactly listening. Yeah. So let's find out. Yeah. So
I have a splint in.
you have a splint in. Yeah.
What matters most is your occlusion, right? And how well you're able to chew your food.
Well, all the issues are important. So we have open regulation. Now I'm pushing her jaw backwards, just emphasizing this, and she does go into blocked regulation. Yeah. Now open your mouth a little bit, no, just a little, and now I'm pulling it forward. I'm yanking on her jaw. That does not block regulation. Now I want to see, well, not blocking and going in a yin state are two different things. To test a yin state, no pull filter, no hand on the ear. We go off a strong arm. I relax my hand here, I have a strong arm. Now I'm yanking her lower jaw forward, away, and something happens. Now do a yin state, do two. We get two yin mudras if I move her jaw forward, and we got block regulation when I move it backwards. That means the position where she is in neutrally is already too far back. Now, those of you who can think logically, it's absolutely not violating anybody's intelligence, is it? Yeah? It's what you would expect. Yeah? This is evaluation number one. Yeah? Is the forward, backward. Then the second one is the arch, the upper arch. Now we can already see in her that there was no space for the anterior teeth. Yeah? So I know that her arch is too narrow. That's why I picked her for the demonstration. So
I have all those problems that you talked about.
So let's look. Yeah, I put the filter back on, or the hand on the ear. She has open regulation. We test against a weak arm. So now I am increasing the narrowness of her arch by squeezing it together. Yeah, or you do it. You take your upper arch and squeeze it together. And what happens? She goes into block regulation. Now hook your thumbs in and pull it apart. Pulling it apart does not cause block regulation. Does it cause a yin state? I have to take the filter off. I have to take the hand off the ear or the filter off to have a strong... Be relaxed for a moment. Yeah? Just making sure we have a strong arm. Now the only variable that comes in, she pulls the teeth apart and the arm goes weak, and we do one yin state, two yin states, three yin states. Yeah? 3 yin states. That means her jaw is telling us the position that it's in right now is too close to being narrow and is too far away from being expanded. It wants to be expanded. How many of you could follow this? Yeah. It is very, very simple when you see me do it this way. And yet when your money is sent on your patient, it's going to go, It's always the same. We only have two principles in here. We're moving between block regulation and yin state. And anything in the middle we have no interest in. And we want to know what makes the patient sick, what makes them healthy. Yeah? If you can grasp that idea, you can do anything with this technique. So, if I was a dentist, what is more important with her, to move the lower jaw forward or to expand the upper jaw? And how do you know that? You know, just by the quantity of the yin states. You know, one is a 3, one is a 2. Now let's do the height. Yeah, for the height of the teeth, we use the same technique. So first of all, we want to kind of have a squeeze the teeth together. And if that's a stress, if the height isn't enough, it should express itself. If she's far off, now she has a splint in, right?
We just did this a couple weeks ago, so it should be.
Okay, so
in
she
the
has
right place.
she has a
We
splint.
muscle tested.
She has a splint, and that was muscle tested by who?
Deborah Hopkins.
By Deborah Hopkins. Okay, she was muscle tested for a student who hasn't taken a workshop with me in the last 8 years. Yeah, who is probably learning from other good people. She's been with me, but she hasn't been here for a long time. So let's see. There's a test of her. We're testing her now. Okay. So you bite together.
Hard or easy?
Bite easy together. Yeah. You know, that doesn't cause block regulation. No, bite really hard together. Yeah. That doesn't cause block regulation. So we know she's not far off. But now we want to challenge this. Now we want to build up her bite and see what we're getting. So we get a strong arm, bite together again.
Easy.
Easy together. She is okay. And so now I want to see what happens if I elevate her bite. Yeah, I go always by the thickness of a spatula, bite gently together and swallow. Yeah, it's biting and swallowing once, resets the system as if the teeth are higher now. And what we see though is that she goes in a yin state by putting that up. I do 1, 2 yin states. When we elevate the bite, now the question that comes up necessarily is now, is more better, right? So we go one step up. We still have a yin state. So let's start with 2 right away. So do 1 yin mudra, thumb inside, yeah. And another one. So with 2 spatulas, we get to a 4. So what's the next question that we're asking?
More.
Is more better? Yeah? So
When you did the 4th one, it wasn't as strong?
I don't...
When you were doing the muscle testing, the 4th one didn't seem as strong?
Yeah, well, there's a little bit more than 4 yin states. Yeah, it was 4.5.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what you observed. Okay, bite together. Now we got 3 thicknesses. We still have any yin state, so 2. And now we back to a 3. What does that mean?
2's better.
The 2 was the winner. Yeah, it's a Gauss curve. It's sort of where a certain optimum is reached, and then it kind of goes back down. Let's just do one more and show that. Yeah. How nicely that goes. Trying to not get the drool on me. Okay, here we go with whatever that is, 4 or 5 or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we get no yin state on this one. Yeah. So with this simple method, by measuring the yin states, yeah, we can approximate how high splint needs to be. And now when I started to try to communicate with dentists that, listen, this person needs a splint, but she doesn't need a splint, she needs one that's the thickness of 2 spatulas high, it's about 3 millimeters. Most dentists on the phone say, oh yeah, no problem. And I come back, I look at the splint, it's 0.5 millimeters high. I had this experience over and over and over again, like dentists have no ears or can't read, or so some essential problem. And then I resorted to start working with my old friend Dino, who taught me these procedures. And I said, Dino, I know you're far away, but would you open up your practice to our patients? And so everybody goes over there to Victoria, and Dino makes a splint in the height that is needed. And we're observing miracles with a lot of patients. And one of these I wanted to show to you, and I think we start with it, Dino, huh? Before we do anything else. Would you come up? So, thanks, Serena. So, really, like, we're applying the same principle over and over and over, yeah, to these different issues. There's one more dental issue I'll show you at the end, but it makes it really easy, yeah? Because I don't have to know anything about anything. So this is Dino Paulos. He is a real dentist.
Part-time, sometimes.
He's also an artist. He does beautiful work with driftwood artwork and builds waterfalls and other things. When you have a dentist, you want a dentist who is not just an intellectual type, but you want one who's a bit of an artist too. That's why we call our technique ART, and that's why dentistry is one of the healing arts. You know, they're kind of all neighbors, and the rest I think I'll let you say.
Well, I wish I could sit here and tell you that it's as easy as he makes it out to be, because there's a lot more other factors are involved that he doesn't know about. Neither do I know about. But and of course, the bottom line is you have to challenge people with different things and test them and let them find out for themselves if what you're doing is appropriate. And that's the bottom line. So it's not as much as what you dictate is what the patient is responding to. And that's it's a huge difference. But you do have to create an environment and a possibility for them to get to the what if kind of stage. If it's you're trying with their bite, and of course, you know, it's a big can of worms to open up, because you know dentistry is not cheap and it can be very expensive. So you want to you know, to do what's in the best interest of the patient for the least amount of energy and time and money, you know, and that's when things work the best, because people appreciate you trying to do that, and they're a lot more cooperative and they get a little more excited about what they're trying to achieve. And of course, you know, you're always trying to impact on their symptoms, and whether it's with a bite, whether it's with an electrical disturbance that's potentially short-circuiting the system, your first attempt is always trying to neutralize those components in a kind of reversible way, so they can appreciate the difference or the impact of this particular thing you're trying to prove to them, rather than saying to them, well, let's take out all your teeth and hopefully that's going to help you, or let's crown all your teeth and I know exactly where your bite should be, and I don't want that responsibility, of course. I want people to ideally be chomping at the bit. You want them to be pushing the envelope if it's something that's required to do. So I chose a case to show you, but some of you may have seen before that it's kind of dramatic, but it's a good kind of case to kind of show very dramatically some of the aspects of the impact of the dental component to the health of the individual. In this particular case, a lady that was diagnosed by, I don't know, 3 or 4 neurologists, Dietrich, with MS, and she was 32 years old, and her main issue was her left leg was totally kind of separated from her control system. She had no power over it, and she was in a lot of pain. She had to take medication every 4 hours. And she was basically barely out of a wheelchair and had a hard time walking. And what the video will show you is 2 major components that were contributing to that from a dental perspective, and one was some electrical disturbances that had to do with her root canal teeth and a dead tooth that were blocking energetically the energy to the leg, and the bite, and that shows up quite nicely. So I don't know how and we can kind of speed this up and be flexible with it.
I don't know, I've never used this thing.
Oh, good. We'll find out. So you have a controller or what?
Well, here comes.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it, yeah. So we just need to press. Is this the?
Wait, something happened. MSP, here we go. Yeah, look, it's from there.
Okay, so this is basically how she presented.
Can you focus that a bit better?
No. How can we?
There we go. That's as good as it gets.
No, I don't know. How do we freeze this thing?
Freeze it.
Oh, just to kind of.
Freeze
And then where's the volume?
Hit pause.
Pause.
There's no audio.
No audio?
There's no.
Okay.
This? Ah.
How about freeze here? Would that work?
Yeah, well, let me turn this off, and then you try that. Aim it at this.
No, I see.
Did it work?
No, that's okay.
Well, you just tell me and I'll do it.
So one of the ways of, one of the things that I do quite often in people, rather than, like I say, going in there and extracting her root canal, hoping that I were, connected to her issue, I use ART, first of all, to establish a connection energetically between, say, the things I suspect in her mouth. In this case, it was her root canals. And I do neurotherapy where I freeze them with procaine, basically to neutralize that disturbance. So energetically, if something is blocking her, she gets reconnected again. And she's talking there. I want you to notice the discrepancy in her bite, and then the space she kind of generates on the left side versus the right side. And but when you look at the teeth, it seems kind of normal. And she has a huge shift to the right. She has a cross bite on the left side and the back, where the teeth are kind of backwards. And she has to program against that to kind of avoid that. And she has no support on the left side. So structure is a major issue for her. And then when she tries to talk, you can see where her jaw kind of shifts way over to the right. She generates a lot more space. She's missing a bunch of teeth on the left. So her cage is open when she goes to swallow. And she has to do a lot of things to kind of idealize her swallow. So it's not you can see that there's a huge discrepancy on the vertical. There's a twisted jaw, and she has no tires on one side. So obviously she struggles with her structure, and of course her whole body suffers as a result of that because she's wasting too much energy on the bite. So we give her what we call a diagnostic appliance, and to sort of create a better level that she kind of swallows on and address the missing teeth and all that. So I'm about to freeze the teeth now because I want to check. You saw how she came in. She was struggling with her walking. I want to see how she would respond to neutralizing her teeth. And it's unfortunate we don't have any volume because you can obviously be nice to kind of hear to see what she's saying, but I will verbalize her thoughts or her speech. So we started neutralizing the right side. She has about 3 root canals there, and already she's walking without her cane.
Does that mean infiltration with protein?
Yeah, and yes, basically, but I go a little extra. I do an intraosseous kind of where I use a dental procedure to penetrate the bone, and I infiltrate my It's a little more. No, just next to the teeth. But you can just infiltration will do it. So so now I've done more teeth.
No, but we got it better on Friday.
Oh, Here's the volume.
If you want to bring your mic close to the speaker, you probably
I don't have a mic. Oh, do I? Here.
And then when you did that bicuspid, I got it in the left hip bone.
Yes. Okay.
Like as soon as you touch that, I could feel it right here.
Okay.
She's saying
So let's just see your balance now. Because you're not walking with a cane.
No, I mean,
And
leg-wise, I'm good. Ankle's still sore.
Okay. The ankle didn't clear up till we did the left side last time.
Right.
So the ankle is still there, right?
Yeah, still there.
Okay.
Balance is
getting better.
Yeah, definitely.
Just in the last 2 minutes, I see a big change. You know?
My speech is better.
You're not stuttering.
I've neutralized, this is the second time I'm doing it.
Flowing much easier.
And
It's a massive improvement.
every time we did it, she had a relief for 18 hours. She could walk normally. So we're doing the intraosseous neurotherapy
Can you
now,
get on
the
your
last
toes now?
remaining
Let's see.
teeth. And she gets totally reconnected.
Back to Friday.
Yeah.
And this
Isn't
is
that
the second
incredible?
time we've done this, so that we kind of proved that it wasn't a fluke the first time. So and the people appreciate that.
We're capable, Judy.
My leg is tired. It's very, very tired from
Yeah.
being in spasm. So I feel the tiredness.
It's a different feeling.
Oh, yes, totally. Yeah. It's not. I can even move with my eyes closed. I haven't done that in about 12 years.
Yeah. And you don't need your cane.
Not at all.
This is, so we've neutralized just your upper teeth, eh?
Yep.
And you're wearing the appliance?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So
She
let's
had
take
root
the,
canals on the lower, but
It's
they
still
didn't
not too
test
bad?
energetically, so
I can pivot.
we got
Yes.
a wonderful result just by doing the teeth and testing
Proprioception is good.
with
Uh-huh.
the teeth.
Uh,
So
balance,
we kind of
toes,
concentrated on the ones that did, and this is the kind of way
They'll do that.
the way she
Like
was
that.
doing it.
1997.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
So it
Oh,
doesn't
this is
happen like
exciting.
this every time. So
Feel a little
don't
more
think that
stability,
this is
obviously?
a slam dunk,
It does.
but it does.
You don't
does
think,
happen.
you don't
So it's
think
something
about
that
your
you can
next
test
step.
for.
No, there's not that.
So this thing she got about, usually on the average, we did it 3 times just to kind of
Have a
diagnose
walk.
and neutralize. And next day the pain was back, and she's back to
A lot of
the
pain
same kind of
in the
issues.
hip flexor, through the quad.
But not
Yeah.
as bad as she was the very first time
The
I saw
ankle's
her,
very
which
stiff.
was like 3 or 4 days before this.
I have to think to plant,
Uh-huh.
so the proprioception is
Not there?
not there at all.
Okay.
It's not a very good day. It's not as bad as it was
Yesterday.
yesterday prior to the freezing.
Right. But it's getting there.
Yeah, it is. The pain is
So
kind of
hug me,
awful.
speed
Yeah.
this up. You need to speed it up.
You're struggling.
And you have to pigeon toe to balance
Uh-huh.
without the cane.
Okay.
Very much so.
A bunch of balance. Kind of preoccupies your brain, doesn't it? Where's the nearest wall to lean onto?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, you're kind of leaning over to the left. Your body leans over to the left.
Without the appliance, my left leg feels as though it's not connected.
No, completely.
It's like I have to drag it. Planting is very, very difficult.
Uh-huh.
I can't, let's see if I can lift my leg. No, my
Can't lift your leg.
quads tightened, hamstrings tightened, and I can't.
Uh-huh.
No, can't.
So, what happens when you put the appliance in?
That's it. Keep going.
You're
So this is something that really you can visualize it, you can actually see the connection now. This is an involuntary response. I'm cleaning out the bone, the teeth are out that were extracted on one side, and this is the right side, and this is the left leg, the one that was involved. And I'm trying to pick it up about 2 feet up in the air, and she wasn't aware of this. So that kind of shows you, vividly a dental disturbance or a focus. Well, I don't think she can comment on that, but did she have MS? Well, I don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I don't know. I'm dealing with her dental issues, so. And we've already established the connection, so. Speed this up before somebody faints here. Okay. I just wanted to show you, and then I use ART, and you have to be very kind of specific to, and this is before the pore filter, so I had Judy hold her ear and do all kinds of, acrobatics, but, we got the job done. Now it's a little easier. And I'm testing her for materials I want to put in there and doing a bunch of things. Her leg is quietened. And of course, that's another guide, which I usually don't have the luxury of, is obviously if the leg was an issue and it all of a sudden relaxed, like in this case, obviously there's nothing there that's disturbing her. So that's another way of, and then she goes into a yin state there. So it's another way also of, establishing that my job is, I've done a good job in cleaning out whatever was blocking her there. So those are the things that I kind of utilize, along with the, my clinical sense and what I see and what I feel. And so it's invaluable because you can't. So this is like 4 days later, she's been wearing a heart splint, which I made her myself because I didn't have time to send to the lab. And where's the audio? Can you put this back? I'm sorry.
Okay. Then what happened?
No, that's okay.
Take the plate out.
So she's taking the splint out. You can see how much the splint is affecting her, the structure.
Oh, right away, yeah? Yep, right away. I do not have it. I do not have it. I don't want it smoothly.
Okay. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, right there. And she's all excited now.
Uneven surfaces.
Look how her aura has changed.
The steps, up and down steps, and I don't have the balance that I have with the plating. It's amazing. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it.
So let's just see.
Okay.
Wait.
Well, first let me see, because I can jump, I can dance, I can do anything I want to do. Okay? I take the plate out.
Okay. Then what happened? Take the plate out.
And now I'm gonna get up on my tiptoes.
Yeah. Oh, right away, yeah?
Yep, right away. I do not have it. I do not have it. I don't
so
walk
you walk
it
as you walk.
I don't walk it as well.
Now this is without this splint, but without the electrical disturbances.
So
she's still much better than
totally.
when she came in with her cane.
You're gonna lean over on the left side.
Just by taking the plate out.
Yeah.
Now,
so
let's put it back
in.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Plate in. Plate in. See?
Yeah.
Lost my button!
No. Oh, I was so worried. I thought that was the plate.
No, just the button.
Okay.
And now she's bent over. Oh, I hope you didn't get that.
No, I did.
That's a wide shot. See,
great.
and I can tiptoe and everything. I can take my plate out and
walking is all of a sudden
See
you're
how it
just
shifts. Look at
not
her.
quite there.
Look at her pelvis.
But it's
I mean,
still,
it's still
yeah,
good.
but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as when you had the teeth,
Oh.
right?
Right.
Because remember,
Like do the army, the old army march
right?
without it.
And then can you do that without it now? If you take that out?
I've been trying it all night.
Yeah.
I was up all night, so I've been
Okay,
trying.
let's see.
I can do it on this side.
Yeah, but you that one just.
Nope, I can't.
So we put
can't.
that.
Okay.
So this
So
is, you can
Steps
see
are
why
an
this is
amazing thing. I mean, I used to always have to hold on to the railings like an old lady. And
Okay.
Okay. So obviously that shows you that different components are taking place here, and trust me, it not every case is like this, but it's a wonderful case for teaching purposes to see vividly how the different things. It's a summation of all those things. Now, what you have to appreciate here is that has she not worn her splint when if she didn't cover the structural component, say the surgery was done, the teeth were cavitated, and she got a wonderful response, the pain is gone. Had she not worn the appliance or had her structural aspects idealized, she would have reverted back to the original state eventually, because that would have kind of overtaxed the system. She would have started compensating. She would have obviously lost ground and would have been a lot worse, say, in 2 weeks. I mean, you can see the difference immediately, but can you imagine what she would look like a week or 2 or 3 or a month later without that? Okay?
How is she doing now?
You'll see. Okay.
Plate?
Yeah.
Has that plate as a continuous appliance now?
For the next little while, yes, till everything kind of adjusts, and you'll see the plate in close up, and then we kind of finalize it with a partial or did something else to, So
I don't know.
yeah.
All right. I'll get you down to my
So you can speed things,
Speed it up.
a little bit, yeah. So there is this split now, and it's we've kind of it goes beyond her own teeth, it's a little higher, and so she has extra vertical dimension. This is what she requires at this stage. Now, as she eliminates more and more things, and I'm sure we could lower that, and she would be just fine. But you can see now how her jaw now centers totally different than when she first came in, and it shows you the discrepancy and the gymnastics she had to do to get to her teeth and swallow. So you can see the discrepancies there, where she's not touching at the back, it's open on the left, and look at her tongue has to act like a bellows to seal every time she swallows. So those things are additive. I mean, they're so the splint basically creates a cage, closes the cage and allows it to swallow in a more uneventful manner, a more physiological way.